All right, the live stream is starting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 8th New Jersey Pinelands Commission meeting. I'm calling the meeting to order. Will the Deputy Attorney General please read the Open Public Meetings Act statement?
Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, Pinelands staff. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Pinelands Commission was given in compliance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act by providing notice to all municipal and county clerks within the Pinelands area and to the Secretary of State on May 1st, 2020, and to the Commission's officially designated newspapers on April 30th, 2020, and by posting a copy on the Commission's website. Due to the remote nature of the meeting, the notice also included the means for the public to participate remotely.
Thank you, Christina. Now, will the Executive Director please conduct the roll call?
Will do. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Ashman, Commissioner Avery,
Here.
Commissioner Christie, Commissioner Erlin,
I'm here.
Commissioner Howell,
Here.
Commissioner Irick,
Here.
Commissioner Janarone,
Here.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Here.
Commissioner Lobauer,
Here.
Commissioner Pikaliski,
Here.
Commissioner Quinn, Commissioner Rowan Green, and Chairman Prickett.
Present. Thank you. This is going to be interesting. Please, would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Flag.
Do we have a flag yet?
Yes, we do.
There you go.
Wow.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America,
And to the republic,
for which it stands,
one nation, under God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to mention, it's obvious, but for the public to call in, the number is there. When you call in, you're going to have to supply the call-in ID number, the meeting ID number, which is also on the screen. Thank you very much. Commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the March 13, 2020 Commission meeting minutes?
So moved, Chairman.
Is there a second?
I second.
Who seconded? Ed?
Jane.
Jane. Good morning, Jane.
Good morning.
Are there any questions or comments on the March 15th minutes or 13th minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of adopting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Please note, the March P&I and Lucy's committee meetings were canceled due to the pandemic. 2 state laws were subsequently enacted that enable government authorities to hold meetings electronically. On April 24th, 2020, the CMP Policy and Implementation Committee held the Commission's first electronic meeting. The summary of that meeting follows. The committee adopted the minutes of the February 28, 2020 meeting, open and closed session. The committee received a presentation and recommended commission approval of an extension of the Garden State Parkway secondary impacts agreement for exit 44 with Atlantic County for acquisition of additional lands to meet the county's obligation. The committee reviewed draft CMP amendments related to coordinated permitting. These GAP rules would establish the application process for infrastructure projects that do not receive municipal approvals. Committee members expressed interest in revising public notice, comment, and hearing procedures. The committee will have further discussions at its next meeting and requested that the commission's DAG be present. The meeting met in closed session to discuss a litigation matter. Any comments from P&I committee members at this time on that summary?
No.
Okay, thank you. The executive director will now present her report.
Thank you. So it's been a while, except for those of you on P&I. As you all know, effective the middle of March, commission switched to working remotely, all employees working pretty much full-time from home. We have limited presence in the office as necessary. Jessica Lynch is in, we got to process checks, pick up mail, get the mail distributed. We have some facility maintenance going on. Paul goes in to clean his fish tank about once a week. But other than, and you know, it's very unusual. So the shift to remote work was a significant lift for us and went well. There was some struggles, but we have surpassed them. Certain employees had to rise up and get things going that we've been trying to get going for years, which we've now put in place. Evan Bossett and his staff worked very hard on that. Chuck and April getting reg programs online, you know, switching over to working from home. So it went really well. I was very pleased and very proud of everybody's efforts. And now we're just sort of chugging along and doing everything. There's no work that's not getting done. We have engaged with our new accounting firm, Smallins, who are in Red Bank. Jessica Lynch and I had a call with them. We had to get them on board because the audit is going to start soon. So that was done and that went well. We are monitoring closely every executive order from the governor. There's a lot of legislation moving around that has impacted both our operations and potentially future operations. There's been a Term and Extension Act things and Open Public Meetings Act. That's taken a lot of time for us to keep functioning. More recently, there's a movement now on potentially furloughing employees. Senator Sweeney's bill is moving quickly and he wants that addressed. So we're trying to stay as on top of all of that and ahead of it, as far ahead of it as we can. So when something comes and something will be coming, we'll be ready. So Stacy and Zobeida Concepcion, Jessica Lynch and I meet daily. We talk about it. We're survey, you know, we're just keeping a really close watch on everything. So we're ready. These are for those of us who've been in government a while, when things like this happen, although this is particularly stunning in its breadth, things happen very quickly. So you have to really be aware. So we've been watching those very, very closely. There's been a lot of work. I'm sure Susan and Chuck will be going over a lot of it. We had an interesting call with the Department of Environmental Protection on some wind projects, offshore wind, bringing conduits ashore that potentially could go through the PNR. DEP is shepherding that, and it sort of made me laugh because they were pressuring us hard about, you know, what are you going to do and what does this look like and how long is it going to take? And once we had the call, the permitting for DEP's part is not going to really happen until the middle of 2021. So the push on us was a little premature, but it was a good call. So now we're coordinated and that's of interest and good. We had mentioned to you that, and you had given us permission to apply for a grant, which would help us fund the painting of Fenwick Manor. As part of that grant application, we had to put out the RFP to get bids in, so that we could put that into the grant. And of course, you know, you start to pull strings with us and very quickly things get complicated because Tony McNichol, who's working on the grant application, there are 2 forms that had to be signed by the owner of the building. We are not the owner of the building. So this launched a whole string of emails bouncing around Treasury and other places. We think we found the person who can help us. I'm sure it'll get resolved, but it was joyful for me because one email then got forwarded. And I just, in such short time, because everybody literally is sitting at home looking at their computers now. So things happen much more quickly than in the before time.
Mm.
So that's all going well. And we're continuing to push that. That application is due early in June. So we're on track for that. So that's good. Alan raised a question before about some finance things and budget. The budget, which would have ended the end of June, we start a new budget typically in July. The governor extended that a while ago through to September. We had and continue to have some anxiety about the budget. And I'm not sure if I'm sure I didn't tell it to all of you. So I will just say that at some point not long ago, the governor had frozen a lot of money after the COVID-19 response happened. And I immediately got anxious about frozen money. And I asked Jessica Lynch to look into it. And sure enough, our fourth quarter appropriation, which was $700,000 and change, was swept, which means it was frozen. So Jessica and I, we had already been panicked. So now we went into super panic, but it took some phone calls and Jessica managed it. And we explained that that was all for salary and we got our money back. But we were very anxious. And I'm just telling you this story because that's how quickly state money can just vanish. So I am, there's always this question, when you learn in management school about the things that keep you up at night. This is keeping me up at night. But I'm telling you this just so you know that we are watching it. We are being as cautious and aggressive as we can. But our permit fee numbers, and I've mentioned this before, I'm not sure if to the commission, but we've talked about it at PMB, have not been tracking well this year. And that started before it has nothing to do with what's going on now. The permit fees have been increasing, ratcheting up over the years. I think this year, Jessica, we guesstimated over $600,000 in permit fees.
Yes, that is correct.
And now we're somewhere around 200.
275,000, yes.
Okay, so, and we're almost at the end of the fiscal year. So we are significantly off, hundreds of thousands of dollars off.
Yes.
40%
Right now.
What, Jessica?
40%.
We're at 40?
Collected 40, yes.
Yeah, so that's, more than half is not there. So that already is causing us anxiety because that is unattached money. That's not the right word, but it's not money that has to be used for something. So that's, money that easily goes to salary. I don't know about the last month where we are, but I don't think, it's not like some $100,000 permit's going to come in. So I'm just letting you know that between the permit fees and potential budgeting issues and talk of layoffs or furloughs or cuts, we're in a sort of very cautious mode. So now, I'm starting to look at everything, every new thing that, comes along, another training thing. I'm like, maybe we shouldn't spend that money. I'm in a very conservative place when normally I am not and have not been for a while. So this is going to be an interesting 3, 6, 9 months before I think we come out from the other side of the impacts, both of the shutdown, what'll come out of that, and then just the fact that all the permit fees were so off for us.
Yeah. Sounds very prudent.
The furlough, the governor had been talking about layoffs, mostly initially as a way to try to get federal money, but so that fear is out there. The furlough approach that Senator Sweeney is talking about, his bill was up yesterday in Senate committee. It moved out of committee. It's up, I think, Monday in the Assembly committee. There's an Assembly counterpart now. There are Assembly and Senate sessions on Thursday of next week. So if the governor decides he's supporting that, that could come to fruition. And there's no real meat on the bones, but that's an approach where employees would be furloughed part-time, and so they could collect unemployment, which is what these bills are doing, to allow them to collect unemployment, both the state unemployment and that extra federal unemployment, which depending on your salary, you would either be made whole or could actually do better. So that's an interesting approach, but there's nothing yet about how many employees, which employees. So that if that comes, that will also be a lot of sort of work for us to manage and get through that. But we've been thinking about it. We are thinking about it. And when it happens, it may come so quickly that we may be moving before, I will keep the commission apprised. I'll talk to the chairman, but it may happen so quickly that it could be in between 2 commission meetings and we've already had to do something. And
Nancy, has the federal money, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were finished, but I was just curious about the federal money we get for the science projects. Does that money come in quarterly or yearly? And do we have that money on hand?
Jessica?
It is actually sits in a federal account and it's a drawdown. So the full amount is in there. They haven't frozen those accounts yet.
Okay.
It's reimbursable. So I provide, once we do our reimbursable funding, then I draw down the amount for the reimbursements.
So it's
Okay.
there, but they could take it.
Yes.
So the other thing that's now, of course, spinning in my mind is painting the building, but we're gonna let that play out and see how it goes. Because we have $120 sitting to paint the building.
Mhm.
Is there any indication that that money in the grant would be available since it's a state state money?
I think, and Susan, you may know more than me, but I think they delayed the date that you could apply, but that was the only change.
Right, they did extend the application deadline. I forget what the original deadline was, but it's now June 4th. But other than that, all signs and indications are that they are moving ahead, with accepting all the grants and reviewing them and expect to award the money. So proceeding with that assumption, and we'll complete the application and submit it.
Okay. Thank you.
I have, I email staff as much as I, can, because I know that everybody's worried, but what I will tell you is what I tell them. My concerns are the commission's work and staff, and I will always function that way. I'm trying to protect staff. I will always try to protect staff and make sure we can continue doing our work. So I try to calm angst as much as I can, but it's an anxious time. Just is.
Well, we support you as commissioners. I think I can speak on behalf of all the commissioners. We support you in that, and whatever we can do, I think as a commission, we would be glad to do to support all the staff.
But in the meantime, we're all just working hard, getting a lot done. So, I'm so pleased by all of that. It's good. It's good staff and we're getting there.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just add something,
Yes, Alan.
it doesn't affect our current situation in terms of our budget, but going forward for our next budget, I would like the staff to do some kind of an assessment, and doesn't have to be in great detail, but some kind of an assessment about what the probability of application fees are in the growth areas of the Pinelands. It's occurred to me that in Ocean County, for instance, where I used to work, there are most of the regional growth area has now been approved for development. Largely, there'll be some hit and miss things here, but big developments that have a big application fee associated with them will probably not be forthcoming from Ocean County's growth areas. And I'm just not familiar enough with Atlantic and Burlington and the other counties. And I'd like to get an idea what the staff's expectations are for development in those areas. And I think we have time to take a look at that between now and September.
Well, have you
Mr.
talked?
Chairman?
Have you talked to the executive director about that idea of looking into the development applications in the counties of the Pinelands?
I have, Mr. Chairman. In general terms, we've been talking about our budget concerns since, I guess, March. I guess the first time was when we discovered we had no money in the bank, which was an anxious moment for the executive director, and she cleared that up very quickly. So, but we have in the past kind of based our projections of application fees based on what happened last year. And at some point that's not going to be a way that's realistic.
Of course.
I don't see that, I don't see the state offering us additional resources, particularly this fiscal year and going into the next year as well.
Alan, is that something the Personnel and Budget Committee could get involved in, that you're the chair of?
Sure. Be glad to do that. It's an important function of doing the budget. And it's really just looking at in a general way at what areas are left and what the development trends have been in the regional growth areas. Because I think that's where the large application fees come from. And Susan or Chuck could correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. Well, we look forward to, it sounds like the executive director is interested in doing that. And I look forward to hearing the results from delving into that. And I hope you have the people that you can reach out to get the information that you need, if you don't have it in-house already. Nancy, is there anything else?
No, that was it for me.
If any commissioners, would any commissioners like to comment on what Vice Chairman Avery just mentioned? The idea of reaching out, what's happening to construction, I guess not only in Ocean County, but Burlington County and throughout the Pinelands. Mark?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Oh, yes, Commissioner Ulrich.
Yes, sir. From my perspective, I think new construction is down significantly in the area that I work in. Existing homes Jane could probably give some guidance on that, but new development is off significantly.
Yes, you're correct. Existing homes we're still having a shortage of inventory, and even more so because I think sellers are hesitant about putting their homes on the market right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I think, Alan, I think you're right on target that fees are going to be significantly reduced in the coming year.
I'm afraid that may be the case. I don't see a surge of applications this year, that's for certain.
Well, Chairman, if I may, we know of one large application that we talked about at the last P&I meeting, the Heritage mine site. And as I said then during that meeting, I think that with the high unemployment that we're now experiencing around the country means that there's simply not going to be any support for projects like that to move forward. There's no market to sell new homes to. So I think the executive director is exactly right that these projects are going to fall off over the next year. And we're going to be facing a real shortage of application fees.
And Mark, of course, that specific project's in the PNR, so there wouldn't be an application fee in any event.
Right.
We'll have significant staff time, I'm sure, invested
Right.
in it.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's doubly bad.
Yes.
Okay, if there are no other comments, I'd like to move on to the next report. The Director of Planning, Susan Grogan, I received a report.
Sure. Just a couple things. Well, Nancy mentioned the application for the Historic Trust Grant, which is moving along. Likewise, we completed and submitted our application for the Pine Barrens Scenic Byway National nomination. That was quite the effort, quite the undertaking. It's a very extensive and detailed application. It required support and involvement from a lot of different staff, but we successfully completed that and submitted it the end of last week. We're doing some fine tuning now at the request of our state Department of Transportation contact. And we'll resubmit a slightly revised and enhanced version shortly. I think it's notable that we were able to obtain letters of support from a wide variety of organizations, Pinelands Municipal Council, of course, but also New Jersey Conservation Foundation, South Jersey Chamber of Commerce, and US Biosphere Program. That was a good one as well, and a number of others. So there's widespread support for the nomination, and we are hopeful that we will receive that. I don't have a timetable for you. It may be a while before we hear anything back, but that was a big effort. Activity from the municipalities in terms of ordinances and master plans is relatively slow right now, as you might imagine. There are municipalities working on specific redevelopment planning efforts and a couple of ordinances, but not a whole lot. So that's given us time to focus on some other things, one of which is rulemaking. You know that we have a number of amendments to the CMP that we're talking to the P&I committee about. One of those is stormwater management. DEP stormwater management amendments were adopted and took effect in early March. And so we are reviewing those and evaluating how they relate to the commission standards and what changes we might need to make. So that'll be upcoming at a future P&I committee meeting. We're also looking at a draft of rules to implement some of the Kirkwood-Cohansey water supply recommendations and policies. So we have that draft in-house and are reviewing it. That's also something that will go to the P&I committee next. And another bit of good news, Pinelands Infrastructure Trust Fund. You'll recall the commission allocated funding to 5 different projects. We are staying in close contact with the State Infrastructure Bank, both DEP and the Department of Transportation. They are very active in making sure that the projects, that they understand the status of all the projects. The money is reserved for those projects. They're working on their process and procedures and timeframes. We had a very successful conference call with the Infrastructure Bank, DOT, and about 10 people from Monroe Township earlier this week to make sure that that particular project that the commission awarded funding to is, still alive and moving along. The township understands its responsibilities. So that is actually going very well, even as we're all working from home. I was impressed that the Infrastructure Bank is very organized and very interested in working closely with our municipalities. So that was good news. And that's it.
Great. It certainly makes sense to use the infrastructure fund money to employ people and get things done. I think that's got to be in water projects, sewage projects, protecting the groundwater. Glad to hear about the rest as well, that some more rules have been written and the P&I committee should see them in the near future.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The Director of Regulatory Programs, Chuck Horner, are you on the phone somewhere or?
I am, Commissioners. Good morning.
Okay.
Commissioners,
Good morning.
members of the public. I trust everyone's doing well. I had a couple of items that I wanted to review of significance and of hopefully of interest to the commissioners. And I think I was overly optimistic into when we were going to be returning to the office. So by the next commission meeting, I'm going to move into having some video so people can see me. The first item that I wanted to notice or to discuss briefly was that we've had 5 or 6 electronic conferences lately. We had a conference where a proposal in Southampton Township to locate a 29-acre solar facility on the closed and capped Big Hill landfill. That's in the vicinity of Route 70 in Southampton Township. We also had a conference with Manchester Township officials, primarily concerning their plans for the former township landfill. They have a closed landfill, but the landfill's not capped. So we had a conference, the discussion about the need for the landfill to be capped and the township's proposal to locate a solar facility on the capped landfill. Also part of those discussions were our planning office, Susan Grogan, has been discussing with the township a redevelopment plan for the entire site. The third item I wanted to mention was that we did hold a pre-application conference with what was represented to us over the phone with the contract purchasers of the Atco Raceway. The purchaser wants to change the use of the raceway. into an automobile storage and auction facility. They would use almost exclusively the existing developed portions of the raceway. They indicated during that conference that they would be filing an application with the Pinelands Commission, they anticipated by the beginning of June of this year. We also had a conference call with Department of Environmental Protection officials regarding the state's plan to use the former Green Bank School in Washington Township as offices for the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. We discussed primarily an issue that centers around the school is served by an on-site septic system. And in the Pinelands, when you're doing a change of use, you have to demonstrate that you're going to meet what we refer to as the groundwater quality standard, the amount of effluent that'll be going into the ground. We do think we came up with an approach to address that issue, but we do not have a formal application at this point. The next item that I wanted to mention is we had a conference call with many Monroe Township officials, a discussion about a proposed demolition of a portion of the Cecil Fire Company building and construction of an addition. The township has a very expedited plan to accomplish that project. The application has not been filed yet with us. Part of the urgency is getting the equipment back into the completed building prior to the upcoming winter. We had a successful discussion, managed to address the issues of the township, and hopefully that application will be coming in to the commission, and it should be relatively straightforward. And the last item I just wanted to mention is that the staff did have a conference call with representatives of JCP&L, Atlantic City Electric, and Public Service Electric and Gas over the utility company's continued interest in being able to use a limited amount of herbicides in their electric transmission right-of-ways within the Pinelands area. And those discussions are ongoing. That's the end of my report.
Chuck, I have a question about the ACO Speedway. Did I hear you say there's new owners, or the previous owners that were new are the new owners?
It was represented to us on this call that they have a contract purchaser of the property, not the current owners.
I remember that there was a situation where an agricultural area was cleared, but it wasn't turned into an agricultural area, and there was some direction, I think, from the commission to reforest that area. Has anything been done with that, or are my facts, or is my statement accurate?
I'll work backwards on that particular question, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
The current applicant proposes to reforest. It's approximately 17 acres. For those commissioners that aren't familiar with this, approximately 17 acres were cleared, and it was represented to the commission that would be for a blueberry agricultural use. It's immediately adjacent to the physical improvements that exist on the ACO Raceway parcel itself. There were discussions and rumors that the need for additional parking at ACO Raceway. The parking never came to fruition. It was represented then that the area was going to be a blueberry agricultural field. The agricultural use was never established. The commission worked with the township and the ACO Raceway owners in an effort to have it reforested. The current applicant does propose to reforest the entire area.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Any other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I'd like to ask Chuck a question. Chuck, could you provide us with a little more detail on that last item you reported about herbicide use in the rights of way? I mean, could you tell us, what herbicide are they talking about using, and how are they actually using it now? Are they proposing to use it? And wouldn't this use require an amendment to the right-of-way vegetation management plan, the agreement that we have with them?
Certainly, Commissioner. Right now, they are not using herbicides in their right-of-ways. There's a specific prohibition in the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan that prohibits utility companies from using herbicides within their rights of way.
Okay.
This discussion item has been on and off probably for at least a decade with the commission. And the utility companies have recently renewed their discussions for a number of reasons why they would like to be able to use the selective use of herbicides in limited areas in their rights of way. And they have various reasons, which includes safety to their personnel, reduced impact to the soils based on the vehicles that have to move around in the rights of way to currently do the vegetation removal, and several other reasons that we'll be discussing with the commission in the coming months. At this point, the executive director just asked the utility companies to provide some additional information regarding where the herbicides would be used and the types of herbicides that are being proposed and how they would be applied.
So you'll keep us apprised, I guess, when we get that information.
Yes,
I'm very interested in that subject. Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Any other commissioners have questions for Chuck or Susan?
Mr. Chairman, Chuck, do you have an estimate of the application fees that'll be associated with the applications you've talked about this morning?
No, I do not right off the top of my head. And that's because, excuse me, and that's because I don't have the construction cost estimates as part of these discussions, but I'd be happy to try to formulate an estimate and provide some information to the commission, either at the next P&I meeting or at the next commission meeting.
Thank you. And Alan, that may be something you want to put on your agenda
Right.
for when you consider the fees.
Hopefully it's somewhere around $300,000, Chuck.
Not quite.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one thought. The area that was cleared at Atco Speedway, there's been so much discussion about managed grasslands as a important habitat for Pineland species. Is there any thought in managing that area as grassland rather than reforesting? Just curious. Would there be any advantage to the overall health of the Pinelands?
Commissioner, this is, for members of the public, this is Chuck Horner. That's something that we can take under consideration, Commissioner Avery. That's a good idea. We can talk to some different scientists to understand the implications of that. And we could, if appropriate, incorporate that into any application we may receive.
It just came to, if Atco was in Atlantic County, I think the freeholders would buy it in a heartbeat to fulfill their obligation under the airport agreement.
Right.
Understand.
I think though, with turning into grasslands, the cost, I wonder if there is a savings to a property owner that cuts trees down without first getting it, I don't think it was approved, but if it wasn't approved, without getting approval, and then to be able to, instead of planting trees and other types of vegetation, to plant grass. So I hope that, Chuck, you'll look into that as well, what the trade-off would be in that situation.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there's many competing interests at play in that situation.
Okay, well put. All right, anything else for Chuck or Susan? Okay, we're gonna move on to Paul's report.
Good
Paul,
morning. Sorry, I was muted. Good morning.
Morning.
So during the past 2 months, we've taken this opportunity to undertake some important housekeeping and enhance our abilities to communicate with the public while raising awareness of the commission and its work. I completed a comprehensive review of our website by reading every line of text and testing every link and updating documents and enhancing documents on our website. We completed an internal review of our intranet, which is our internal website for employees. I created 3 videos that raise awareness of the Pinelands, one overview, one that highlights the success of the Pinelands Conservation Fund and one that raises awareness about Pinelands or timber rattlesnakes in the Pinelands. We created 10 educational puzzles that we've shared that will be rolled into a new junior Pinelands naturalist program. We've been providing substantial help on the Pine Barrens Byway application. And then just yesterday, we created a new Instagram account that we're already growing lots of followers right off the bat. So we've been working hard to keep the public informed as to what we're doing while taking that opportunity to improve what we have. Last but not least, we will be organizing likely in the coming weeks some educational webinars that will offer in lieu of the fact that we're unable to do. For example, the short course and the summer short course is canceled as well, given the circumstances. So we're going to use the opportunity to do some educational webinars. Lastly, the annual report is on your agenda today, so that's up for approval. And please let me know if you have any questions.
Oh, I've noticed on Facebook, there's new crossword puzzles and word finds and things like that, which are really nice. Were you a part of putting that together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
One of the articles you sent us, I don't know whether you can answer the question, but it had to do with state recognition of waterways throughout New Jersey. I think it was state. And some of those waterways were within the Pinelands. Do you have any more information on that, or any feedback from the public on those waterways?
I've not heard anything on that. I have seen the articles. I can provide additional information if you would like.
Okay, I would. I'd be interested in that. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
All right.
I've got a question for Paul, if I may.
Yes.
I got your email yesterday about you're setting up the Instagram account for the commission, and I wonder if you could talk a little about that. What are we trying to do there? Trying to maybe reach a new audience through Instagram?
Absolutely. So Instagram, for those who are unfamiliar, is a social networking site that takes advantage of video and photo posting. And clearly it has become quite popular, especially among younger generations, especially Generation Z. So people many people who have moved off of Facebook and have moved to Instagram find it to be a nice tool for instantly sharing photos and ideas a lot. So if you're on Facebook, you can just log in using your Facebook ID into Instagram immediately. It seems to be going really well already. I was out there very early yesterday taking photos in Morton State Forest. So then we posted those on Instagram, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback. People are pretty excited about it.
Well, that's great. Congratulations. I'm glad you're thinking along those lines. That's good.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to reach younger generations. That's always been one of our challenges, is to reach younger generations, the next generation of Pinelands protectors.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nancy, I have a question about what I asked before about the the state recognizing certain Pineland waterways. Do you have any thoughts on whether we have to include that in the CMP at some point, those changes?
I'm not sure. I think if they redesignated Pinelands, I thought all Pinelands waters were already designated as Pinelands waters, so I'm not.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right, so I don't know what they would have changed, but we'll look at it.
Good. I like, yeah, if you could get back to us on it and the significance and from our perspective on the state doing that, recognizing those waterways. Thank you. All right, legal affairs, Stacy Roth. Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners. Nice to see you all again. Normally about this time of year, I would be telling everyone to please hurry and get their financial disclosure statements in. However, as you know, legislation was passed that extended, actually an executive order was passed that extended those deadlines until July 31st. So in the next couple weeks, I will start with my friendly reminders and providing you with all the links and everything you need, but we have ample time to get that all done. Just a follow-up note, Chairman Prickett, with regard to the Pinelands waters. Pinelands waters are PL1 waters, which are the equivalent of C1 waters. So they're as protected as they can be under DEP's regulations. And as a result, we reference those in our water quality standards in terms of DEP standards. So there shouldn't be anything that needs to be done, but I will defer to Chuck and to Susan since that's more their area of expertise.
Is it possible there's no more protection then? It's just kind of recognition of these waterways by the DEP or the state of New Jersey could be more significant?
I think so. And I think it wasn't limited to, it wasn't necessarily Pinelands waters. I think what happened is DEP went ahead and has been analyzing whether or not they wanted to make water category changes with regard to other water bodies. And that's what they did.
I was just wondering if it had anything to do with scenic and wild waterways, whether there was any equivalency to that. It was
I don't know the answer to that. My recollection is scenic and wildlife on waterways are a federal designation that then are reflected in the state program. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And that's all I have today.
Any questions for Stacy? Commissioners? Okay. Any final questions to Nancy or anyone else? Did reports? Great. Thank you, commissioners. All right. Now the commission will consider a public development project and a waiver of strict compliance. Is there a motion to introduce the Buena Vista Township resolution to demolish a single-family dwelling 50 years or older?
I'll make that motion. Pikalisky.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Okay, public comment was held at the commission's May 13th meeting. Mr. Horner, is there anything you'd like to say about your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd be happy to answer any questions that may arise. This is an application by Buena Vista Township to demolish an existing single-family dwelling. As you'll note in the resolution of approval on this matter, that the town, based on the pandemic, the township did request that the executive director authorize the emergency demolition of the single-family dwelling prior to commission action on this application. The executive director provided that authorization to Buena Vista Township. It's our understanding that the dwelling has still not been demolished, but this application in front of the commission would provide for demolition of that dwelling and approval of that demolition. And there was one public comment, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman. That public comment centered around the discussion that's occurred in front of the commission on a couple of occasions recently about redevelopment plans in the Pinelands area. And our response to the public comment in the public development application report summarized indicates that we believe the proposed demolition meets all the regulations of the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan, and the issue of the redevelopment plan is not germane to this particular application in the sense of whether or not the proposed development meets the standards of the Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan or not. But I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have a picture of this at this point?
I do believe we have a picture. Mr. Lakin, can you help us?
Wow, I didn't think you would on this one. That's great.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll just mention that our staff archaeologist did review the application and determined that the existing structure did not rise to the level of requiring a cultural resource survey.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, do you have any? I'm sorry.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yes.
From the P&I meeting, I understood that the public commenter, Mr. Dimitrov, had requested that our DAG weigh in on the legal question that he had raised. Are we going to be hearing from the DAG on this?
Thanks for raising that, Commissioner Lobauer. I am actually, as a Deputy Attorney General that's employed by the Division of Law, I am statutorily and contractually, as a condition of my employment, restricted from providing legal advice to anyone other than state agencies and boards and commissions, such as the Pinelands Commission. So Unfortunately, the comment, although the comment was phrased as a request for legal advice, I cannot provide that.
Right.
However, the Attorney General's office does have an Office of Citizen Services that does take comments that are provided to the Attorney General on various matters of private concern. I did provide Mr. Dimitrov's comment to them. I think it's similar to the situation that Chuck was mentioning, in that I believe the Attorney General's office has received similar questions of this nature in the past, and Citizen Services has responded to those in the past as well. But this was forwarded on to them.
Would you have any advice for us in this matter in light of that?
I have not further looked into the issue. Again, my office typically would send this on to Citizen Services and then they handle it from there.
I see.
Commissioner Prickett, if I may, my understanding, Commissioner Lobauer, my understanding is that the issue that was raised had to do with the local housing and redevelopment law. The application that's before you is a parcel that is owned by the town that they are seeking to demolish because of a public safety concern. And we have had discussions over time with regard to the effect of the local housing and redevelopment law. And it's predominantly, it's a municipal concern. It's a municipal law, a law that pertains predominantly to municipalities with regard to how they deal with properties that are what they consider not meeting their full zoning potential. And Chuck has already, Chuck, I know you spoke about this previously with regard to what the commission's role is. In fact, I think we discussed this at the last commission meeting.
So Stacy, you would be saying you would agree that this is not an issue that's properly brought to us at the Pinelands Commission. This is a municipal issue strictly. The legal question raised by the commenter.
The issue that deals precisely with the local housing and redevelopment law is not a Pinelands compliance issue, which is what this board is charged with doing.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Are there any other commissioners with questions? Okay, thank you. All in favor of approving this resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to introduce the Jackson Township Waiver of Strict Compliance Resolution for the Phil Hornbluth application?
I'll move it, Chairman.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
I second it. Jane?
Jane. Okay, Chuck, is there anything you'd like to say about your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll very briefly summarize it, and I'll be glad to field any questions.
Thank you.
An application in Jackson Township for a waiver of strict compliance to build a single-family dwelling on a slightly larger than 1 acre lot. A waiver is required from the minimum buffer to wetlands and also from the minimum depth to seasonal high water table required in the Pinelands of 5 feet. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? I have just a point. I was glad to read about runoff from the roof and the property going into some sort of a basin, protected wetlands. I don't remember seeing that before in a waiver for strict compliance. I'm sure it's been there. I was glad to see that there's crushed stone for any driveway or its equivalents. I think that's a good thing. And also the provision to have the advanced sewage treatment system for the home. So it seems to me, and also the distance from the wetlands, some distance has been protected in this report. So I think we've done basically all the things that we can do in order to protect the Pinelands in this situation. Does anyone else have anything they want to say after my comments? Okay. All in favor of approving the resolution, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, it's now time for the public. Please call in now to participate in public comment where the record is not closed. You must provide the meeting ID, which is at the top of the screen here. We look forward in hearing from you. There are 3 applications you can comment on at this time. The application from Joseph J. White Incorporated for planting of 9 acres for wildlife management in Pinelands in Pemberton Township. And the second, the application from Hamilton Board of Education for the installation of 2 synthetic turf athletic fields in the town of Hamilton. And 3, the application for recreational improvements, including 2 parking areas and an existing park in Dennis Township. Okay, the meeting is now open for public comment. Jessica, Ms. Lynch, do we have any commenters on the phone at this time?
I do. I'm letting them in. Good morning, caller. Please state your name for the record. Good morning, caller. Please state your name for the record.
Agnes Rosala.
Who?
Agnes.
I have no comment.
Okay. Is there anyone else, Ms. Lynch?
No.
All right. Just like to give just a little more time. Okay. I assume there's no one else?
Nobody.
Okay. I'm closing the first public comment session. We're going to use the same procedure for the general public comment. The executive director had no substantial issue findings with the Berkeley Township Ordinance 2019-15-OAB. The Hamilton Township Ordinance 1923-2020, the Township of Hamilton Ordinance 013-2019. And do commissioners have any questions or comments on these ordinances? Okay, hearing none. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve the resolution to authorize the executive director to execute an extension of the time period for Atlantic County to acquire the remaining acreage to complete its obligation under the secondary impacts agreement for interchange 44 of the Garden State Parkway?
So moved.
Motion.
Okay, I heard Ed, and Ed moved it, and Jerry seconded it. Okay, thank you. Okay, Stacy, would you like to say anything about this? You've been the point person, I think.
Yes, and just briefly, Paul, if you can put up the first slide of the tiers. So this resolution pertains to a secondary impacts agreement that was executed between the commission and Atlantic County when the New Jersey Turnpike Authority was doing the completion of the interchange at Pomona Road, which is exit 44. And as some of you may remember, that was an incomplete interchange. There was access onto the Parkway South and also exiting from the Parkway South onto the road, but the remaining portions of the Clover interchange had not been completed. Under the Parkway overlay provisions of the CMP, as you may recall, a that particular provision allows improvements of interchanges on the Parkway, so long as there aren't any secondary impacts. And how we define secondary impacts is that there is no pressure to change the existing zoning within a mile and a half of that development. So the commission ascertained that there would be secondary impacts. The secondary impact agreement was implemented in order to require that the county memorialize the existing zoning on properties that were within 1.5 miles of the development. This was a bit unique in that it created a tiered approach. So within the first 3 years, the county could focus its attentions with regard to memorializing zoning, which could either be acquisition of the property and fee or obtaining an easement within the first 1.5 miles. 18 months after that, they could extend into tier 2, which is 3 miles. And then beyond that, they could extend into tier 3 after another 18 months. At the end of 6 years, the agreement had a provision that would have required the county to move forward to provide monies to either a college entity or a non-for-profit to continue its obligations under the agreement. And they could have done a water quality project within the same water quality management area, or they could have continued with acquisition. However, and Sue can chime in, the county has been extremely diligent with regard to its obligations under this project. And Paul, can you bring up the second slide, please? So the areas in yellow show the lands that have been acquired by the town with regard to the secondary impact, or excuse me, not the town, the county, with regard to the secondary impacts agreement. The county decided to focus all of its attention within tier 1, the 1.5 mile radius, and its obligation, if you'll bear with me, I just closed that window. Its obligation was to memorialize the zoning on 356 acres, and it has done so now on 327 acres. There are approximately 29 acres, I believe, that it still needs to memorialize zoning. So it has completed the vast majority of its obligation under the secondary impacts agreement. And the agreement afforded the county the ability to obtain an extension of its time frame in order to move forward with the remaining obligations. It has advised the commission that it's moving forward on 15 additional acres, and once it finally closes on those 15 acres, it would then only have 14 remaining acres. So rather than bringing in yet another party, staff is proposing to allow the county, and the county wishes to complete its obligation. The other thing to point out is, although they could have secured easements, the county went ahead and acquired all of this property in fee. So that is added assurances with regard to memorializing zoning here. And given the current COVID-19 pandemic, rather than extending it for only 18 months, staff is recommending that it be extended for 2 years. Anyone have any questions?
Stacy, I do have a question. This is Rick. Do we have any idea how the Atlantic County is going to manage those lands that have been purchased?
I do not, but perhaps Sue does.
I don't know that I have any. I don't have any detailed answer for you, but I can tell you the county has asked about the possibility of doing some low intensity recreation on at least a portion of the property they've acquired, and that would include some hiking trails, some very, very low intensity, but they do intend, at least for a portion of the property, to make it open to the public for low intensity hiking, biking purposes, perhaps. That's about all I can tell you at this point.
Okay, well, thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for Stacy or comments on this application?
I'll just say that I think the county's demonstrating great good faith, and I'd love to give them the additional time, especially since it's really difficult to make any kind of real estate activity during the pandemic. So they certainly need the extra time.
Amen to that.
Sorry about that, Gene.
Yeah, they've done a great job. I mean, it was 3 tiers, the focus on the area in the first tier as priority.
Yeah.
To me, it's kind of amazing you're able to purchase all those parcels in this period of time. So I'm all in favor of giving them the 2-year extension. Any other commissioners with comments? All in favor of approving this resolution, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. I would like to introduce the 2019 annual report with this beautiful picture on the front. Hold on a second. Never mind. Okay, is there a motion to approve the report?
So moved.
Go ahead, Ed. I'll second it.
Okay. And would the executive director like to say a few words about the report?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is that the report was scheduled to be approved in March, and due to assorted pre-pandemic situations, it didn't get there. So it's later than we like it to be. Paul and I try very hard to get the annual report to you within like the first quarter of that next year. So it got hung up a bit, but other than that, you know, I looked over it again after I had looked over it so many times before, and it was a good year. We were very productive. I think the report looks great. I think it's a good tool. I hope you do too. I don't know, Paul, you want to say anything else about your report?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have a document like that that summarizes everything we've done over the years, because not all this information gets out there. Some of it is very detailed and nuanced, and it's important to have a document that summarizes these things for everybody, and we can do it in a way that has interesting graphic design elements and nice photos and charts and things that people can understand. And I know last time we did our plan review process, the annual reports were a key component of compiling that information versus having to recreate the past and figure out what we did over the course of that last time that we did a plan review process. So the annual reports serve as important documents historically and help to summarize what we've done and highlight the good work we're doing, but also helps to inform decision-making going forward because we can rely upon it as an accurate document and piece of information.
Very good. Paul, can I assume that you wrote the majority of this report?
Yes.
Good job. Good job. I have liked to use the series of annual reports on the website to look at the histories of different topics, and it's been very enlightening. And people are not always connected to the commission from the beginning until now, so you need documents like this to really understand the steps the commission has taken over the years and changes that have occurred. So I too think it's a wonderful document, along with the other documents that are the monthly reports as well. Really help us to understand what the commission does, how it benefits the Pinelands and helps the community. Do any other commissioners have anything to say about the report?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to congratulate Paul and Nancy. I think it's an excellent report. I think we do need this milestone. I think it's enormously helpful. One minor suggestion, and it occurred to me that a table of contents may be helpful, where you could read on one page all of the work we've done for the year. I leave it to you to make that judgment, but it just occurred to me that that could be useful.
I'll say, I have 2 things to say. One, I think we used to have a table of contents, and I think I took it out. Because the report was so short and it didn't seem to make any sense, but we can put it back in or put it in a different way. The other thing I will say, no one should be fooled into thinking that Paul and I single-handedly wrote this report.
Yeah, I was going to add that. There's a lot of help provided by everybody. Science writes their entire section, for
Yeah.
example, and planning provides a huge amount of information, and everybody's a part of it.
That's wonderful.
Congratulations to all.
Yeah, Chairman, I'd like to compliment the staff too. I think this is an excellent report as usual, and I wanted to particularly highlight a few points that are in there. I always enjoy reading the science section because I feel as though we don't get enough information, at least I don't, from my luck, enough information about what the science staff is doing in terms of field research, and it was fascinating to read that encapsulation in the report. It was also great to see the reference to the Climate Change Committee starting their work, and that was an important milestone in 2019. And then thirdly, the education outreach, Paul, that you and Joel are doing is just fantastic. And it was great to see that there were so many different facets of it, and to see the numbers of people that we're reaching through that, and the different types of audiences that we're reaching. And on that note, I'll just add that, when you were speaking earlier about having to suspend the summer short course, of course, I understand you have to do that. I'm very glad to hear that you are planning to do a webinar instead. I'm sure there's going to be a wide audience for that. All the people who were looking forward to doing the short course this summer will be hoping for something. And I think a webinar would be a great way to try to bring some of those wonderful speakers and subjects that you always put together to the public. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Just a thought on the climate committee. It seems like perhaps this format makes it easier for a lot of people to get together on maybe different days that they wouldn't otherwise. So perhaps this might provide us with an opportunity to do even more work with the Lucy's committee.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments from commissioners? Yeah. So Paul, you did a great job coordinating and editing, I'm sure, and a lot of work in putting this report together, along with I know all of our staff do wonderful work, especially written work that they provide the commission and the public.
And
so I'd like to thank everybody. So all in favor of approving the 2019 annual report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Okay, for the public, please call in now to participate in general public comment. You need to type in the ID, which is at the top of the screen here. Jessica, do we have anybody for general public comment yet?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's give the public some time. And commissioners, do you have any comments or thoughts you'd like to express at this point? Okay.
Great to see and hear everybody. And once again, I miss our contact, so I'm glad we can do this at least.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to thank Nancy and the staff, all the staff, for all that they're doing to keep this going during these times, because I think it really adds to your workload.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
It does definitely add to everyone's workload. I mean,
Yeah.
some things, in some aspects, I feel more productive, but then I realize I'm spending a lot of time on things I never would have before. It's been really an interesting journey, I'll say. And sometimes I think I could never go back to work. This is fine. And then I'm like,
yeah, it's kind of making us lazy.
Well, I think it's good to have a combination, in live meetings as well as Zoom-like meetings. I think we should just all go back to, I guess the state legislature might have something to say about that, but maybe in informal sessions using Zoom for subcommittees. I don't know that would be a problem.
Yesterday, Rick, the legislature's, the Senate committee was a Zoom call.
Wow.
With public commenters, they had it all set up. You had to register to comment. I mean, everybody's finding their way slowly but surely. We're all getting better at it, but that was in a completely Zoomed call.
Good.
It was cool.
Chairman, we have a call.
Okay. Who, can you tell us who they are?
Good morning, caller. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Fred Akers.
Good morning, Fred.
Morning, Fred.
Hello, I'm watching online. Am I commenting now?
You are commenting now. We hear you.
Okay, this is Fred Akers from the Greater Harbor Watershed Association, and it's good to see and hear you all, even though the format's a little unusual. I have two comments. One is the federal wild and scenic designation basically defers to the state water quality standards. And for my river, the 300-foot buffer in the Pinelands plan is very similar to the 300-foot buffer in the C1 category. So it's pretty much consistent. And then I have an anecdotal comment and a shout out to Ed Rangowski. I have seen and heard that there's an essential business in the Pinelands that's doing really well now, extremely busy, and that is the septic system pump out business. It's really booming, and I guess it's because, you know, more people are home and maybe it's all that toilet paper. I don't know, but I just thought I'd bring that up as my comment. So thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Fred. Good to hear you. Good to hear your voice. Well, I mean, when you're sitting around the house, you know, if you have a septic system, it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, you know, maybe I ought to get to this. You know, it should be pumped out every couple years anyway. So I know I had my septic tank pumped, and it was a number of years. So what Fred says hits the mark with me. Are there any other public commenters, Jessica?
No, Chairman.
Okay. It's good to hear from Fred. Okay, I'm going to now close the public comment. Do any commissioners have any final comments at this time? Okay. I understand that the commission does not need to go into closed session today. Is that correct, Christina, as far as you know? Or Stacy or Nancy?
That's correct.
Okay, in unison. Yeah, that's good.
We practiced.
Does the executive director have any final comments?
No, I'm happy the call was successful. I mean, we tested with P&I. We did a lot of testing to make sure we were successful. So I'm very, very pleased.
Yeah.
I personally get a lot out of these meetings. I think we can compose our thoughts. We can see everybody at the same time, including ourselves. I think the meetings are beneficial in so many ways. Do any other commissioners have any final comments? Giving you a lot of opportunity today to do that. Okay, hearing none. It's so good. It's so good to be with all of you. So good to hear all of your voices. And I think our next meeting is the P&I meeting coming up on May 29th. And then the next commission meeting is June 12th.
Okay.
Okay.
And I move we adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sean. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Doesn't matter. Okay. Everybody take care.
Thank you. Stay healthy, everybody.
Thank you, Rick.
Take care.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.